got a large crowd that had signed up today, so we may be having people join the meeting, as we start it. But anyway, welcome to Workshop Wednesday. A lot of you folks have been with us in the past, and we've been doing this for a little over a year now. It's always the third, Wednesday of the month. And the topics rotate based on your feedback. So at the end, we'll ask you to give us some feedback about what you think and tell us where we want to go. But anyway, this session is really focused on back to basics. So, let me just set the stage a little bit. For those of you that have been with us in the past, we've tried to vary the sessions between the practical, how to maintain and manage and enhance your site versus the operational. Nice, helpful tips around, managing functions within the application. And today we're going to be looking at user profiles and vehicle profiles, some of the benefits of them and of each of them and what you can do with them. As I mentioned, we're always at the same time of the month. So it's always the third Wednesday of every month from 2 to 3 Eastern. And again, your feedback is greatly appreciated by us. So you'll see at the end of the deck, we've got a nice little smart code that, you can scan using your smartphone and, fill out our little survey and tell us where you think you need some additional help or other topics that you think you'd be interested in. The meeting is recorded. So again, if you do sign up for it and you don't attend, we do send it out anyway. And everybody is muted, but we do have a way where you can ask questions along the way. So to ask questions, for those of you that are familiar with Teams, there's the little chat window up at the top toolbar. So you'll be able to see it, the little bubble. So that shows the conversation. And then at the very bottom, you can see, where you can type your question and tell us who you are. So we'd appreciate you giving us that. We'll be monitoring this throughout the presentation. And as we get into this, feel free to ask questions along the way. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to John. John's going to, get into the agenda and explain the agenda a little bit more. Otherwise, get away.
Thank you, Joe, for that introduction. And as always, thank you, everyone, for joining us for another session of Workshop Wednesday. We're really excited as a CS team to be able to provide this to you as a resource and a tool for help you to better understand FleetCommander and how to run your fleet with our solution. As Joe mentioned, back to the basics, the idea behind this is that each quarter, on the second month of each quarter, we are going to be really kind of looking back towards items that would have been taught during implementation when you would have first received training on how to use FleetCommander. We understand that, as your fleet matures, as your use of FleetCommander continues, that, there's turnover that happens within your fleet, within your staff. There's people that need additional information on how to use FleetCommander because they're opening it up for the first time and they need direction, or even with yourself, there's oftentimes a need for reminders on how to use the solution. So the structure with back to basics is that we're going through each section as in order that the implementation team teaches and trains with FleetCommander. We started off back 3 months ago with our initial one, where we end up walking you through how the end user experience of how your people interact with FleetCommander as drivers and as requesters. That's the first stage in our implementation training. The next part of the training moves into the user and vehicle profiles, and that's what we're going to look at today. As the agenda shows here, we're going to talk about what is profiles in FleetCommander, what are the benefits of those. Within each profile, be it the user profile or the vehicle profile, we're going to take a look at the an overview in regards to the tabs that you see when you go into those profiles and various configurations that you might want to consider or you might not have considered before. And then we'll close up the session by briefly looking at the manage screens that help you access the user and vehicle profiles, and then also user and vehicle reports, the question, and then we'll have a questions and answer section at the end and close that with some additional information on upcoming sessions. So with that being said, what are user and vehicle profiles within FleetCommander? Profile in FleetCommander, it's a centralized repository for your fleet data, and it's unique to each of the associated user and assets or vehicles that you have that you're managing within FleetCommander. They are essential components of the FleetCommander engine. You know, when you end up purchasing FleetCommander to run your fleet, you know, you might have chose from the various modules that we offer. Would it be vehicle sharing through the motor pool, key management, maintenance, fuel, risk management, GPS, and telematics? All those really function as a result of the core portion, or the what we call the engine of FleetCommander. You know, there's various portions of that, you know, in regards to dashboards, analytics, reports, you know, managing your policy and all. But really, all of this is possible through the main portion of the drivers and the vehicles, you know, obviously, or your assets. Obviously, you don't have a fleet to run if you don't have assets and people to use them. And so what is critical, and what we want to point out is through this session, is to make sure that the data that you have within FleetCommander, be it your vehicles or your assets or your drivers, that is reliable data, because all the other interactions in regards to maintenance and usage of those vehicles are going to be dependent upon what's found within those records. When we talk about users, you know, it's a wide variety of people that can interact with FleetCommander. And within FleetCommander, each of these types of individuals are given permissions that open up and restrict their access. You know, maybe drivers, maybe the people making the request for use of those vehicles for somebody else. You have yourselves as fleet administrators. You have your dispatchers that would be responsible with the actual reservations themselves. You've got your maintenance staff. You have those that are inspecting vehicles upon their return, and those that might be prepping and cleaning those vehicles for the next time that they go out. And then you may even have interaction from within your organization from those that are risk managers. There are certain special permissions within FleetCommander for them, and also for HR administrators if you choose to use those particular modules. When we talk about profiles in regards to our vehicles or our asset profiles, really it is wide open on what type of things, assets you can manage within FleetCommander. Everything from light to heavy duty, bicycles, generators, you know, yellow iron, patrol cars. There's if it's an item that you need to manage, an asset, you can in theory do that within FleetCommander, and how you manage that is based upon how that vehicle or asset profile is set up. Now, the benefits of using the profiles, the user and the vehicle profiles, well, there are many, but basically it comes down to that you have all your information in one place, be it your users or your fleet staff. You have a very standard demographic data that can be set up, your name, the contact information. You have your system and your vehicle permissions when you're talking about how a particular user is accessing the system. You have the accountability for vehicles that are used by those users. You have the ability through these profiles to establish and enforce the acceptance of policy and certifications and training, and then also the ability for billing and chargeback. Within the asset profiles themselves, you again have all your vehicles and assets in one location that you're able to go and have and access that easily. There's that standardization of data across the enterprise. You're able to establish your rules of use through permissions and access and usage. You have clear visibility of all things in regards to those assets and those vehicles, and being able to manage the custody of those vehicles through the life cycle. So user profiles, overview, and configurations. What I want to do at this point is get away from using the deck and actually show you within our client successes FleetCommander instance what it looks like whenever you are interacting with the user profile. Again, for many of you, this is going to be familiar. You know how to access it. You've been accessing those profiles for some time. But again, there may be those, I know there are several some of our newer clients that had registered for the session today. There are in various stages of implementation. So this is going to look new to you. And even for those that have been using it for some time, it's going to be able to benefit you because you might discover some new tips and tricks. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a profile. We're going to go ahead and look at one that was established for myself within our system here. So with this quick find, you can type in a name and then click go, and it takes you directly to that user profile. As you can see here, I've got several reservations that are either dispatched out or will be going out sometime soon. That's what you see first once you hit the user profile within this quick search. But we're going to go into the actual profile and look at it. As you can see, there's those tabs that we've mentioned that drill further into the profile and the details that are stored within that particular user. You can see here I was able to actually upload an image of myself, and that's a possibility within the user profile if you want to do that. But the basic information, as you can see there, is in regards to name, username. If you're not using single sign-on, if you're using our native login, this is where you can control passwords and create new passwords for an individual, or you can also prompt them to go and get their own, make their own new password. You can do that by clicking the change password upon next login. The other information that you can find here, there's expiration date of the profile if you choose to do that. Also, the very important section that you always want to make sure is set up for a person's profile is the access groups and the usage types. The reason why is access groups really control what groups of vehicles this particular person has access to, and the usage types determines on how those vehicles can be used. Say that you might have, in this instance here, we have short-term rentals versus seasonal rentals, where short-term may be anywhere from 1 day to 3 months, and seasonal would be 6 months, 3 months to 6 months or beyond on that. Once you hit the yearly rental. The importance of having these set up and being consistent in your access groups and usage types is that your vehicles also, your assets and vehicles also have the very same access groups and usage types found within them. So the system ends up using access groups and usage types and compare what a user has as access or usage types to what potential vehicles have those same matches. And if those are missing within a vehicle or missing within a profile, a person's profile, the system is not going to be able to match up any eligible vehicles when it comes to vehicle sharing. So that's one of the things to be mindful of if you're dealing with the user profile, or even as we'll see with the vehicle profile. You have the status of a profile is enacted when you have it's enabled. You have that ability to disable a profile if you want to do so. But just be mindful as you go through here that things like the time zone are set up properly for where a person is located versus where a vehicle is actually being picked up at. That will cause some problems if those don't match up. If you're using the key control system, you're going to want to make sure that your profiles are set up to enable self-checkout or enable grab and go if that's a function that you're using within your system. There's additional information too that's found within the general tab here in regard also with your with addresses, information for contact information. You have contact information for supervisors if you want your supervisor to receive the same type of email communications that this person would when making reservations. Then also you have additional information that would be pertaining to the currency of a person's license, if it's suspended or not. That's all that can be kept here within FleetCommander. And then also, again, when it comes to vehicle assignments, if you're going to have a person eligible for manual assignments, which means they can pick their own vehicle, which we don't encourage, except in unique situations where it merits a person's situation merits that they need to be able to pick out a vehicle when they make their reservation, where they're able to pick a specific vehicle. And then you have auto assign, which the system picks those out for that user themselves. You also have public and private notes. That's the general information that's found within the permission, the main profile tab. There's also custom fields that can be added into here. And if you're interested in adding custom fields to capture information that's not found standard within FleetCommander, just contact us and we'll be happy to help you with that. You also have permissions. The permissions, again, goes back to that screen where we have the pictures of the various users of FleetCommander, the administrator, dispatcher, maintenance, driver, requester. This, again, controls the access that a person has into FleetCommander. Those that have the requester or the driver information permissions are not able to look at what we're looking at right here, the behind the scenes, behind the curtain portion of FleetCommander, where you as an administrator or you as a dispatcher or you as a mechanic have access into and take a look at. And so the enterprise settings, this is, when you hear enterprise, think how that it is an umbrella that covers everybody that's underneath it. You can have, it means that the settings applies to everyone. It applies to all instances. And this, in this instance, what we mean by everyone, we really mean every site, because FleetCommander can control multiple sites. And you can see that illustrated when you scroll down further. We have a transportation site, we have a research park. If you click on here as an enterprise administrator, you have administrator rights to every site that falls underneath there. You don't have to go in and click those various in the sundry sites to give permission as an administrator to access those. Same thing goes in regards to a requester. If you click enterprise requester, any site, additional site that you have underneath there, that person has access to make reservations there. The driver has access to drive vehicles there. One thing real quick to point out, if you're using the maintenance module and you're setting up the system for your mechanics to use, in addition to maintenance access, what you need to do is click on the provider level. When you click on this, it pulls up a list of various providers within the system. And if you want your mechanics to have access to those particular providers, you want to go ahead and click on those. Dependents, this is not something that not a lot of people would use, but if your organization actually allows for the use of vehicles by a spouse or by an offspring, then this is the section where you can record that within that person's profile. As you can see here, there's various and sundry items and information that can be captured to make sure that you have the information necessary to allow for those individuals to use FleetCommander. They're not part of the main part of your company or of your organization. Another access item here is the files within FleetCommander. You can actually go in and add additional pictures. You can or files. It's really good in this instance if you want to put in any type of certification that you need to be scanned into the system. You can do that by choosing the file tab here. Another function and tab that is found within the user profile, which is really a benefit, is that within the user profile, you are able to capture the use of vehicles and reservations. As you can see here, there's a lot of reservations, both completed and approved and featured, that are found within this log here. This again allows you to take a look quickly and see that I have several vehicles that have been returned over the course of the last several months, but that currently I have a vehicle that's late for return and one is late for pickup. So you can go into here, see the history of this person and how they've used those vehicles, and actually they're hyperlinked then to jump into an asset record through those hyperlinks. Always when you're looking within FleetCommander, pay attention to the hyperlinks. We can go directly into this upcoming reservation here if we wanted to from the profile. And even within this view screen here, you've got the ability to jump back into the user profile or jump into the vehicle profile itself that's assigned there. So pay attention to those hyperlinks. Those are very helpful whenever you're dealing with working within the system. Also, as we kind of close out here in regards to the user profile, we see that there is a tab that is for HR use. If you have that module, you can add additional records in regards to complaints or citations. They can all be logged within here. If you're using the maintenance module, you have the ability to track times and also adding work orders, and then finally another way of logging certifications and how those expire. That's the profile for user profiles. We're going to take a look at the vehicle profiles. Again, I'm going to go back to my dashboard, click on home here, it takes me there. And in the same fashion, I was able to look up my name within the quick find. You can also look up vehicles. As you can see here, when I start to type in a vehicle, this number, it actually is pulling up not just assets, but as you can see there, it's pulling up reservations too. If you want to fine tune that search, you can go ahead and put in search for just on asset. And in that case, then it pulls up only assets. We're going to go ahead and go into 101, and we're going to go ahead and take a look within the editing of the profile. We'll talk in future sessions in regards to these other quick find portions. But within the profile itself, what we have is, again, multiple tabs. And these tabs are going to vary from site to site. That's one thing we just want to mention. In some cases, you might find that when you go into an asset or vehicle profile, that maybe the maintenance tab and the service tab is grayed out. That's because you're not using the maintenance module, and so that link has been disabled on that. In other cases, these links are active, but again, you are not using that particular module. So really, the content in there is just it's a link that's there, potential for future use if you decide to expand your use of FleetCommander and into other modules like maintenance or with fuel management, and or with risk management, things like that. Those tabs are there ready for us to go ahead and to activate. That being said, if you really have no desire to ever have manage your maintenance within FleetCommander, we can go ahead and like I said, gray those out. We can take away certain tabs on that. Again, reach out to us, reach out to CS, reach out to support. We'll be happy to kind of resort presentation how it looks, just to get rid of clutter, just to streamline things that help you out. So as we're looking at the profile again, we're the main portion here. You're able to identify the vehicle name, put in the VIN number, identify the vehicle in regards to the description, the year, the color, the make, the model. All those are found there. You're able to keep track of your first mileage, your mileage threshold. If you don't want a vehicle to travel more than X amount of miles, you're able to at a time, you can mark that. There is the updating the mileage within the profile here. You can do that by adding your new last mileage and date. Keeping track of parking spaces if you want to have that. I know one of our clients, because they are managing their electric vehicles, it is very necessary for a vehicle to be parked at a specific parking space. So that can be indicated here within the profile. Other items that are found, and drawing your attention once again to this in regards to the access groups and the usage types, as we mentioned them earlier, in regards to the user profiles, you want to make sure that you have at least one access group marked and one usage type marked within each of your assets if you're using them for vehicle sharing or a motor pool. Otherwise, this vehicle is just going to sit there, and you're going to wonder why it never gets assigned to a reservation. It's because there's nothing there to match up with eligible drivers on that. Again, also you're able to designate where this vehicle is located. It's specific to the site. As I mentioned, there was multiple sites in this particular instance of FleetCommander, and so these sites would be reflective of those permission levels that we mentioned for the for your users. Location, the vehicle type, all this is items that you want to manage within FleetCommander. You can add for key control, add what box and what slot within the box is that those keys located. You have the ability to identify responsible users and owners. This is important if you're when using the maintenance module. When maintenance comes due, you can send notifications based upon who this vehicle belongs to. So you take a look at that and update this portion of the asset profile. Also, and continue along with that, you have a section here that is actually a new section, this depreciation information. This is new with our 510 release. You would not have seen this before because it's tied in now to our total cost of ownership. This, along with the first and last dates and disposal dates, are all critical in properly managing your vehicles and making sure that they're when they come to the end of life that you are ready to dispose of those. As we wrap up too, you have again in regards to, are these vehicles being assigned manually, which means a person can pick this vehicle or not. That's the nice thing within FleetCommander, is that you can actually say this person has the ability to pick their own vehicles, but we can limit that to only 2 or 3 vehicles that they can choose from. That's how that would occur within the system here. And same with in regards to auto assign and auto approve. And then you see here also near the end, these are custom fields. As I mentioned with the user profile, there's custom fields that can be added. There are definitely custom fields that can be added onto here for your within the actual vehicle profile. And if you're interested in adding custom fields, again, reach out to us. Tracking warranty, putting in public notes, private notes, vehicle condition, all of these are items that you can put within your profile. In regards to specs, if you want to keep track of what type of air filter, oil type, or the batteries, you can log that within the specs tab. Within maintenance and service, if you have the maintenance and service module, you're able to keep track of your various tasks, the history of what has been performed, the access into the work orders. You are able to look at the various plans and the cadences of those maintenance plans, where you can select a specific maintenance plan that may be specific to vehicles that use gas versus vehicles that use diesel. That's an example of customizing those maintenance plans. Again, those are customizable, and for those that have the maintenance module, and then schedule tasks, which allow you to set forth individual tasks that need to be happening at a certain cadence on that. Service basically shows you the service, what was done on vehicles, when, and the cost that was involved with those, again, linking back to those work orders. Mileage, this is a great tab that allows you to see where the source of the mileage that is being fed into FleetCommander. It can be brought in through our fuel module with the fuel records. It can be added during a work order, and it can be added at the point and captured at the time that an admin checks the vehicle in with manual assignment. As you can see through the drop-down menu here, there's kiosks, dispatch in and out. There's also telematics with the in-vehicle hardware. Mileage is captured and recorded through here. Similar to the usage tab with the users, you also have the usage tab here within the specific vehicles, where in this case, it shows you who was the people that used these vehicles when and the status of those. Same also as with the user profile. You also have the ability to add pictures and files into the vehicle record itself. For example, you might want to have added into here the registration of that, and through here you can click on that and it will download that file for you. And as you can see, it's loaded in there. I also have the able to add an image of the vehicle into here. And as you can see here, it ends up showing here a vehicle, a red Transit Connect. So that is an excellent item to, again, put in documents within a vehicle itself. Its profile to keep track of those documents. We also have the next tab is the fuel tab. The fuel tab is works along with our fuel module. Again, as we saw under the mileage tab, where fuel records populate the mileage with the fuel module, you're able to keep track of prices, unit costs, totals on those. for every time that this was fed into the system. Similar with those is our new item that was added over the course of our 5.9 and our 5.10 release was the total cost of ownership. We now have the ability to track that within FleetCommander and within the specific vehicles. As you can see, that this information was generated through a cost allocation tool that was added with 5.10. So you have that ability to load this information. If you're interested, and I encourage you actually to make use of the total cost of ownership portion of FleetCommander, it is available to all. It's been loaded to everyone's instance on that with the loading of 5.10 for our that's was done for our Agile hosted, and each of the self-hosted will be able to add that up themselves. But if you're interested in using that, we have done a couple of sessions in regards to the build to total cost of ownership, and those were covered during Workshop Wednesdays. And there's a link that at the end of this presentation that's going to be made available to you to go back and review that portion. And the final tab on here that we want to cover is in regards to telematics. The main portion that's important on this is if you are currently using GeoTab, or if you are a customer GPS Insight, we are able to feed in those odometers and other critical information that can be captured by your GPS service into FleetCommander. In doing so, what we do is it's called turning on the webhooks. This section, if you were to go into telematics and look at the bottom and you're not currently using telematics, this section would not appear. But once we get that ball rolling on your behalf, our support team ends up activating this, and we end up loading in those serial numbers to capture that information. Those are the basics in regards to the user profile and the vehicle profile. And if you have questions in regards to anything that you find within these profiles, we're happy to assist you with that on one by one case, because we understand that with each of our clients, you're going to have different data, different items that you're going to want to capture. And so in parts of the configuration, we can help set those up. Now, in regards to the next section, I just want to point out the manage user and manage vehicle screens. That pull up this again. We were accessing these records by going through the quick search here. But of course, there's many other ways to access it. As I mentioned, within the profiles themselves and within reservations, there's quick links that can jump you back into the managed user or the managed vehicle screens. But the other way of doing that is through the menu here of manage and manage users. This is a section that is parameter driven data. As you can see here, it pulls up right now 7,457 users that are found here. Now I can actually, change that by going with maybe changing and looking at just the enabled, and by filtering out there, you end up bringing that down to 64200 on that. You can drill that down even more if you end up, maybe you want to look at only people that have permissions for yearly rentals. If you hit filter again, that brings you down to 585. So the ability to search for the data, you can start off by, if you just simply go by clearing out your defaults and resetting them, you can bring in as large of an amount of information and results as you want to, or you can drill them down. One of the quickest and easiest ways, though, to get very right to what you're looking for is just simply use the search fields up here by typing them in. If I search for just the first part of my last name and hit filter, what it ends up finding is two results, myself and then Bruce Rodman. If there was a name that had, this in the middle of their name, it would bring that search result back also. And at that point, you simply can go back in, and again, what we were looking at earlier, that same approach of searching for records applies not only just for the user, but pretty much any of the interactions of the managed screens here. You have those abilities to drill down to specific information, or to rule out, to filter out, certain usage types, or certain parameters. So when you look at the vehicles, and we have a lot more parameters that we can search from and with, but ultimately you can just type in the asset name if you know it. You could end up maybe searching for just vehicles that are Chevy vehicles. So instead of having 44, you hit filter, it brings down to 5. One mention in regards to defaults versus filters. Defaults is how you want to always see it whenever you come to this particular screen. It is based upon your default settings. So what you're changing here is only going to be affected by what you see. It won't affect any other user. But if you want to always just see your Chevy vehicles, well, you can hit Save Default. And then the next time that you come back into the vehicles, you're going to see just those. So this is a default. Think of it as how I want to see it every single time. You set the parameters as you want them, hit Save Default, and that will be what it looks like when you come in here. Be careful though, because you may forget what your default settings you put in there, and you come in here and you go, I'm supposed to see hundreds of vehicles. Why am I only seeing 5 assets? Well, it's because of your default. You can clear the defaults and reset them, and it brings it back to that larger number. If, however, you want to just see again, make a temporary change, well, then what you do is, at that point, instead of clearing the defaults, what you do is you do your filters. And so you would end up saying, in this case, I want to see not just vehicles that have the access group of live training, but I want to have live training and standard. You hit filter, and it brings up a larger number there. And then when you're done, or if you're still within the screen, you can hit remove, and it'll go back to your default. But you'll notice that the next time, if you don't make that change and you go to vehicles and come back, it goes back to that 5. It's because the filter is a one and done. That's what I want to see now, not what I want to see later. And then finally, in regards to this, I want for y'all to take a look at the reports. There's a few reports that I want to point out specifically here to make note of. These are ones that, particularly when you're starting off and trying to get your data cleaned up and in order, so there's consistent and reliable data. With your user profiles, run a user detail extra report. That will allow you to really go in, and when you run it as a Excel file, this will allow you to pull all that information into an Excel file, and then you could filter out using the filter function in Excel to look at specific items. Say if you are trying to remove grab and go from everybody's profile because policy has changed, now only 5 people out of 500 have that ability. What you can do is you can drill through that and find out who has that permission with that filter. Asset data dump, same thing. If you're trying to clean up the integrity of your data within your vehicle profiles, the asset data dump is what is a good report to do for that. Some of the other ones that you can take a look at: driver eligibility, driver license currency, mileage cost, mileage, asset mileage, asset in and out. These are all reports to consider using. And also now with 510, we have added to our system the total cost of ownership data dump and the expense summary on that. Access to these are outlined here for the majority for these particular reports. And in a future Workshop Wednesday, we'll actually spend more time in regards to what some of these reports look like and what they can use. But I didn't want to not present those during the session, because really the purpose of understanding your profiles and understanding the data that's in there and captured in there is that because it affects what you find when you start digging into the data and running the reports. So, and that is all that I have for the presentation.
So John,
today.
you have one question. So Jim Montgomery asked a question about.
Oh, Jim.
He wants to make sure he understands correctly that there is not a view only permission. So maybe if you can talk another minute about permissions and what each permission level does.
A view only permission. View. Right. I'm not exactly sure in regards to viewing only. Is that in regards to someone that is would be part of your staff and they can only view and not make changes? I guess that's because there's not a true there's not a true that I can think of if I'm thinking what view only means. And Joe, if you're able to activate.
Yeah, Jim's. I mean, I can certainly activate his mic if let me just go back into this for a second. Let's see if I can.
Am I on?
I don't know that I can.
Yeah. Hello,
yeah,
Jim.
There you go, Jim.
Yeah, John, like I have departments that I would like to just look only, look at their vehicles, make sure that I've got them all, that it's accurate. Maybe even users that just view only, and if any change, I just don't want them free access, you know what I mean, to change, because I spent a whole lot of time and work getting this set up, and I don't want them to toy with it.
Absolutely, and I completely understand that. For individual users, they can go when they log in into FleetCommander, click on My Profile, and they're going to see what is captured within their profile. The majority, you can present to them as much or as little as you want them to see of their own profile, and that's because this particular page is customizable on the view. So if you want them to check their own information, that's where you would do that. In regards to vehicles that are owned by a department or by a user, we have the My Vehicles tab here, which I don't have active right now with me as a user having a vehicle assigned to me, but it would tell me what vehicles belong to me. But that would be the extent of a person who's not part of your staff, their access to that type of information. It would be very specific to them as individuals or vehicles that are assigned to them within FleetCommander. Now, going back to things like human resources, the HR, the risk management, that information, those individuals that have that type of permissions within their profile will only be able to access that portion of FleetCommander. So HR information, a person that has just simply HR information can only look at that information. And honestly, there's probably not much that they can truly ultimately change outside of it as it relates to human resources. And then again, requesters and inspectors, inspectors and prep, they're only going to be able to look at portions that are within their function of, cleaning vehicles or checking for damage and stuff like that. So that's the type of view onlys that we would have currently.
Okay, because I thought of another one, our insurance risk management administrator, once a year. Granted, that's just once a year. She wants to know, all right, how many vehicles do we have? Because we pretty much have a blanket coverage But as we buy vehicles, sell vehicles, of course, we let the insurance company know, but we kind of true it up once a year. And have athletics department that needs to look at their vehicles. And again, I just don't want everybody's fingers in there changing stuff. Pat coming in, and just like myself, I don't want in somebody else's database. If it gets messed up, I don't want them looking at me.
Yeah, in most cases, the best practice on that would be provide them the data that they're asking for through the reports that we are available that are specific to what they're asking for. That way, you have control of what is viewed and what is received, and there's no possibility of in that case of somebody changing records when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, but the reports are great. I've used a lot of reports. This would just be real time, and it would save me time, quite honestly.
Yep.
I'll bring that up. We can talk about it more at the user conference. I'll spend my ed bucks on that.
There you go. What Jim is referencing, everybody, is that at our user conference back in October, our engineering department handed out a stack of money that had our CEO and owners and president's face and name on it, and they were able to take this and put the money in a bidding section, kind of an auction on features and items they would like to see in FleetCommander as a way for us to tabulate what was important to individuals. So yes, if anybody's interested in buying some, I'll sell them on eBay. Any other questions?
No, John, I think that was it so far.
Okay, well, let me pull it back up the deck, and we'll let Joe, you take it away from here.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, we can do a lot, as you've seen. FleetCommander is fully featured. It's got a lot of capabilities. Some of you folks use lots of different pieces of it. Some of you folks don't. But again, part of the service that we provide, as kind of as your voice in Agile is lots of different things. So whether you look at something and say, gee, I think I'd really like to understand this new feature, TCO is a great example of that, where it gives you the ability to allocate out, to all of your vehicles, your fleet overhead, your insurance, calculate replacement fund or depreciation on a monthly basis, as well as then import, other costs into the system that are not maintenance or fuel. So it gives you that ability to do total cost of ownership reporting for the fleet. So that may be something that a number of you may want to think about as your fleet continues to evolve. Within Agile, we've got years and years and years and years of extensive fleet experience. So chances are, if you've got questions about your fleet or want to talk through strategies or changes, we can help you out there, and we're happy to do that at any time. One of the things that we get asked for on a very regular basis is refresher training. So, part of obviously what we're doing today is trying to help you with refresher training and explain different functions of the application, user profiles, vehicle profiles, how to use them, why you should use them, best practices, etc. But certainly there may be other things. So as you bring, as you have new folks joining your team, and they need some training, reach out to us. We can set up some training for you in small blocks. So whether it's 2, 4, 8-hour blocks based on what you need. And so again, it can be, very advantageous for you. On the fuel side, again, a lot of you folks, use FleetCommander. A lot of you import fuel, but, FleetCommander is kind of agnostic to fuel. So it doesn't really matter who you use for fuel, whether you use ComData, whether you use Voyager, whether you use WEX, whether you use Gasboy, whether you use Petrovend, or anybody else for that matter. So if you've got fuel and you want to bring everything in to get all your data in one place, happy to help you there. From the billing standpoint, I think a lot of you folks may realize or recall that we've introduced 5 standard billing algorithms in the system. So, that's a great way to allocate and really understand what your costs are at the end of the day. So if you do need to charge out for your services, FleetCommander's got you covered there, and we're happy to help you there. And then lastly, think about sharing and streamlining and extending your fleet. Vehicle sharing is a great thing because it saves you money. Fundamentally, every time you share vehicles, you save yourself money. And so the more you share, the more money you save. And so one of the great ways to really enhance your operation is to providing that level of automation using key boxes and kiosks. It truly transforms the system in your business into a self-serve environment. So it kind of gets you out of a lot of the overhead. John, next slide.
Tools to help you succeed.
And so now as we kind of get into, some of the tools to help you succeed in FleetCommander, we've got a lot of things that we went through. And so this is a highlight of 2022 sessions. And you can see that we talked about TCO version 5.9 and 5.10. So those are really good to help you get a handle on what are some of those new features in FleetCommander. And you can also see that in November of last year, we did back to basics, which was another, based on the end user's experience. So, just to kind of reinforce the model here. So the goal of Workshop Wednesday is first and third Wednesdays of the quarter, we focus on application-based areas. The second month of the quarter, we focus on more of the operational based. So helping you better understand functions, whether it's the end user, whether it's user profiles, whether it's vehicle profiles, whether it's, could be maintenance. So again, that's why it's really important for you folks to give us some feedback on what you're interested in. Go ahead. Next.
And this is what's coming up next month.
Yeah, next month. So we've got a lot of great things coming up. Next month, we're going to focus on key control and kiosk. So, that's one of the interesting areas of FleetCommander. So, and it's also one of the areas that people, sometimes they struggle to get their head around. So next month, we're going to focus on, understanding and managing key control and kiosk. Should be a great session. And as you can see, we're going to get into some other things, login issues, other end user issues, maintenance, managing profiles. And then, in July, so July and September right now are kind of open areas where we're really looking for your feedback. And just one little note here, and that is the user conference may end up being the very last week in September. So we're finalizing the dates now. Look for some further information about that soon, but it's either going to be the very last week in September or the first week in October, and we'll be communicating that to you shortly. Okay. And then lastly, other tools. So I think a lot of you folks know that, as a client of Agile, you've got access to lots and lots and lots of online resources. So whether it's webinars, user groups, peer sharing, case studies, white papers, etc. You've got, our Agile Fleet blogs. If you're a university client, Kathy is going to be holding a variety of educational, university and educational focused webinars. At the end of February, and she's going to do that once a quarter. And then, obviously the user conference. So hopefully a lot of you folks will, consider coming to the conference. We'll be having that published shortly. And in terms of other things, at the end of the day, we're here to help you. So, one of the great things about FleetCommander is every time you make reservations, every time you share vehicles, you save your company, your fleet, your organization money. It's just a fact of the business. And so one of the great things to do is to really help you present your story to your team. Here's what you've saved, here's what you've avoided in terms of costs. Because again, as you think about displacing a vehicle through sharing, it's not just the capital cost of replacing the vehicle, it's the cost of operating that vehicle, for whatever its useful life is. So whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever that is. So it's a great OpEx avoidance and it's a great CapEx avoidance. So we're happy to help you, create your story, whether it's a slide deck, whether it's, a case study or anything in between. So if you have any interest in that, please let us know. And also, we want to make sure that, you're comfortable with giving us feedback. So please let us know what you think. We do appreciate the time that you spent today. We would appreciate you filling out the survey at the end. And really look forward to hearing from you and seeing how we can help you further in the coming months. So with that, everybody, thanks for attending. Again, we appreciate your time today. And with that, we'll let you go.
thank you all very much for joining us, and we will get this video rendered and added to the SharePoint, and then we will send out a link to this and the deck, and we look forward to seeing y'all next month.